Okay, well,
We've rolled back our football prices. WagerTalk's first full year was 2015, and we've lowered our football season packages to match what we charged that football season. Why? It's simple. We want to make our season-long packages an extraordinary value. You can buy a full college football season or full NFL season for only $5.99 each. But if you buy a college football NFL combo from the same handicapper, you pay only $8.99. Looking to mix and match handicappers? We have you covered. Just email support at wagertalk.com for a bundle discount and to create any handicapper combo you can dream of. Would you like to bet $20 and win $100 at BetMGM regardless of your wager's outcome and get $100 in free wager bucks? Just go to wt.buzz/MGM for more details and find out if you're eligible for this amazing offer.
All right, guys, happy Friday. Welcome in. Time for another edition here of College Football Daily, powered by WagerTalk.com as we continue week one of the college football season, heading into, we got some Friday night games here on tap, obviously, but our first full weekend of college football, and we got 4 games we're going to break down for you, and we're going to do it with 2 of the very best at WagerTalk.com. Welcome in Mr. Steve Merril and, of course, Dave Cokin here to talk a little college football with you. And, Steve, welcome in, my friend. Talk to me here a little bit about what you've witnessed over the first couple of, I don't know, games, shall we say, there between Thursday, between Friday. What have you noticed? Anything? Yep, still some things to learn here, Dave, but congratulations on the play last night. I think South Florida still trying to score, even on the way home. Didn't work for them, though.
yeah, they're not very good, and I kind of knew that going in. I thought the number was pretty short. I had made that line 25, so that was a bargain last night. I had bet it at 17.5. It did go up from there, so that was easy. Quick commercial stuff. 1-0 to start the season with NC State. Number 1 all-time winning percentage and profits in college football at WagerTalk, and number 1 all sports profits in 2021. So things are going pretty well. I've got 4 more games in college football this weekend. I'm not going beyond that. 5 is plenty for the first week for me. One of them is available right now for all access bettors, or all access subscribers, I should say, at WagerTalk. Have another one that's a best bet that you can buy individually, and another one's a free play. So go to my homepage, wt.buzz/DC, and find out all about that. Hopefully you'll consider signing up for the season, and we'll see if we can get you a bunch of winners. I see Indiana and Iowa on the screen. I guess that's where we're starting.
What better place to go than the Big Ten, guys, to open up here 3:30 tomorrow afternoon, and opens up at 5.5. We're seeing 48.5 as a total there. Steve, welcome back. Michael Penix Jr., if you're an Indiana fan here. And I don't know, do you trust him on the road here in a really tough place to play?
to put that in perspective, their opponents allowed 5.6 on average. So I think Indiana was a little bit of an overrated commodity. I think we get some value playing against them out of the gate here this week.
All right, let's get some value there. Dave, how are you looking at this game here with Indiana on the road?
Well, Indiana got a little fortunate last year. I mean, they never should have beaten Penn State. That was Penn State gave them that football game. The Nittany Lions absolutely killed them in terms of the stats, but managed to find a way to lose, and that was Penn State's story in 2020. They did a lot of that. I do like this Indiana team, though. I like the quarterback. I think their offense is going to be pretty good. I do have some questions about their rushing defense, and this is a game where on my power ratings, I've got this game really close. But that's the first thing I do is power ratings, but then I do the matchup itself. And that's where I have, so to me, there would be some value in power ratings on Indiana because I think these teams are really close. But the matchup isn't real good for the Hoosiers because the one area I've got the most question on with them is their rushing defense. I think that could be an area of concern, and I think that's what Iowa wants to do here, basically because that's what Iowa has to do. Petrus is not much. Iowa's weak. They're weak at the quarterback spot. He can't get the ball downfield with any accuracy, and they're going to be a team that's fairly easy to game plan for. But you still have the right components to stop them and to stop their ground game. And I don't know that Indiana's really equipped to do that. Iowa's got the strong defense. They're a solid football team. Decent offensive line too, which I think is going to help them establish that running game here. So I think Iowa goes ball control here. And that might be enough to get them the victory. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, and I don't want to lay the points because that would be in conflict with my power ratings. But as far as opinion goes, I do think Iowa will win. Nevertheless, I think it's a one possession game, so I would not be eager to lay the points where they are now. I think if you liked Iowa, you missed the boat in this game. You don't want to lay 5.5 when it was less than that earlier. Don't take a bad number on purpose.
Yeah, no, amen to that, guys. All right, well, we got another game here that is going to be extremely interesting, and that has to do with UCLA and again, I love this game coming up here, too. UCLA, Chip Kelly taking on LSU. And, Dave, I'll come back to you because listen, Chip Kelly against Hawaii, there were a lot of people high on Hawaii, not so much after the Bruins got through with them. So talk to me about what you think here. What are we going to see from UCLA against LSU?
Well, anybody who was high on Hawaii must have been high to begin with because they're not very good. Okay, they were lucky last year in a couple of games. They're a bad team, and they'll be down toward the bottom of the Mountain West in terms of talent. Hawaii's ahead of a couple of teams, and that's about it. Home field advantage is pretty good for them, but they got blown off the field last week, and they're not. I didn't upgrade UCLA at all because of that. They did what they were supposed to do against Hawaii. I didn't lay the points in the game because I've still got certain concerns about UCLA. The quarterback, DTR is a hell of an athlete, but he can be inaccurate at times. And even last week, in an easy win, there were a couple of throws that he just flat out missed. He better not miss those here. I think LSU is they were in an almost impossible situation last year, coming off an absolutely phenomenal 2019 season. They lost a ton of talent off that team, and they figured to be down last year. Plus, everybody was fired up for them because they were, look what they had done the prior year. So there were no soft spots for LSU, and they paid for it last year. And just the whole season was kind of a screw up for LSU. They had a lot of people out, never really fielded a full team. I think they're tremendously improved. And to be honest, this is SEC talent against Pac-12 talent. And without trying to sound like I'm beating the drum for the SEC, I enjoy the Pac-12 teams. They're out here in this neck of the woods, and I'd like to see them be more relevant nationally. But the fact is, a good SEC team is going to beat a good Pac-12 team. And I also don't think there's a great home field advantage here. Pasadena is one of the more, look, if you watched some of the games we've seen already so far, if you watched the NC State game last night, I mean, even when the game's like 24-0 and the crowd's still going nuts on every play, that's a home field advantage. UCLA has never had that at the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl is kind of it's a nice place to watch a game, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't have that killer atmosphere that can intimidate teams that are visiting, particularly if they're unfamiliar with it. So I don't think the UCLA home field advantage is particularly much here. I think LSU is the better team. It didn't make my card only because of the fact that I don't like going real deep in the first week. I don't want to play 10 games, and the 5 I came up with I think was stronger. But LSU certainly has my eye in this game.
All right, like an LSU leaning with the SEC here in this one, Steve. What did you think of what you saw from UCLA last week, and does it help or hurt them to have played a game already under their belt going against LSU?
Well, I think it definitely helps them, and I think that's the one edge you could say. You can always make a case for and against any team. I mean, Dave and I have been doing this for decades, and there's no 100% perfect play out there. And I do think the one edge UCLA has in this game is that game under their belt. And this is an angle we see work very well in the NFL preseason year after year. When a team plays that first game, the Hall of Fame game normally, they do have a little bit of an edge against a team that hasn't played yet. In college football, keep in mind, there is no preseason. These guys play all of August, pretty much maybe a scrimmage here or there, inter-squad practices. So to have real game condition, I think, does help UCLA, and it was an impressive win. But like Dave said, a huge step up in class here now against LSU. And this is a team that won the national title 2 years ago, and it's an SEC team, of course, on top of that. So I do think there's a class difference here. And whenever we can get a decent SEC team, a defending national champ from 2 years ago, in a basically pick-em straight-up win situation, it's worth a look. My power ratings make the line 3. That's where it was earlier in the week. It's now LSU minus 2.5. So you could make an argument there's a little bit of value now with the Tigers because it's below that key number. But the other thing you want to look at here, too, is LSU obviously had a tough season last year, as Dave mentioned. They lost a ton of talent from the 2019 championship game. And it wasn't really losing Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 draft pick Burrow at quarterback. It was really the defense that struggled last year. This team just couldn't stop anybody. They got off to the slow start. But they did start to win down the stretch. They pulled that big upset win at Florida as a 23-point dog. Then they beat Mississippi 53-48, a high-scoring shootout as a 1-point favorite to finish the season with some momentum. In fact, they covered 4 of their final 5 games of the season. And if you look over the last couple months, they went 3-3 straight up. The 3 losses, though, came at Auburn, at Texas A&M, and home against Alabama. Tough games. So I once again think they're the better team here. I think they're a little underrated now after being overrated last year. The key is going to be the defense, though. And, this is a Chip Kelly coached UCLA team, so that always kind of gets me leaning towards the over. The offense was strong last week with 44 points put up. I do think LSU will get their share here. This is a team that scored 32 last year, ran almost 80 plays per game. They actually ran more plays per game than UCLA and Chip Kelly did last year. They only ran 74 a game. So I think you could lean towards the over 65. And surprisingly, Joe, this total was as high as 70.5 a few months ago when it first opened. I'm not quite sure why there'd be money coming in on the under with that LSU defense. They got to prove something still. And obviously, Chip Kelly's always been an offensive-happy coach.
Yeah, no, he has. No more excuses. Good old Chip. This is his season. We'll see if he can get it done against LSU this weekend. Let's head to a neutral site game. Jerry World, I believe, in Arlington will be the site of Kansas State taking on Stanford here, which is an interesting matchup. Another Pac-12 going against the Big 12 here. And Dave, I'll come back to you on this one. Any idea what we're going to get from Stanford this year?
I think they're average every place. Not terrible, but nothing that really stands out in this Stanford team. And that's not great. I mean, they just look like a 500 team to me, and probably under 500 in conference play. Kansas State's more interesting. I like their skill position guys. Thompson obviously he has injury issues. He has them all the time. But when he's on the field, I think Kansas State can be a pretty productive offensive team if the offensive line holds up. And that's the area that I have the most concern on with the Wildcats is the offensive line. I'm not sure how cohesive it's going to be early in the season, and they need to protect Thompson, obviously, if he's to do his thing. I do like the Kansas State skill position guys quite a bit. The offensive line is the great unknown to me. I think defensively, Kansas State is, I won't say mediocre, but they're not real good. But Stanford's not great by any means either. I think the defenses are fairly close. So to me, it's going to be a learning experience game. I would lean Kansas State because I think they're more explosive than Stanford. But I can't bet it until I get an actual look at how the offensive line is coming together. If the offensive line is ahead of schedule, then Kansas State could be a surprise team this year and might win more games than most people think they're going to win. So this is a game that I have no intention of betting. If I had to bet it, I'd take Kansas State. But it's definitely a game I want to watch because I think this is going to be a good learning experience game.
Feels like Skylar Thompson's been at K-State, Steve, since he's 8. What is it? I mean, what is he? It's 6 years? It's 30 games? You got, especially early in the season, it's got to be edge Kansas State, no?
I don't know. I mean, if you look at how these teams finished last year, Stanford won 4 straight road games to finish the season on a hot streak. Kansas State was 4-1 to start the season, straight up in ATS. They went 0-5 straight up their last 5 games of the year. They scored 18 or less in 3 straight. But, of course, 31 and 31, those last 2 games are very high scoring, but they couldn't stop anybody. In fact, their last 3 games of the season last year gave up 45 or more in 2 of those, 32 or more in all 3. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much momentum carries over from, 8-9 months ago, but if that's the case, it would lean towards Stanford. And my power ratings favor Stanford as well. I make this line 1.5. Kansas State is currently a 3-point favorite across the board. In fact, we've seen virtually no movement on this game, Joe, for all summer long. It opened 53.5. It's 53 in the total. Opened about -3. It's still -3. So very little movement on this. It's kind of a lackluster game, as Dave and I have been talking about. You can kind of see there's not a huge edge really one way or the other. But I do think at 3 or more, I start leaning towards the dog here. I do think both defenses struggled last year, especially down the stretch, as I mentioned, Kansas State. And keep in mind, Stanford last year really struggled defensively against both the run and pass, gave up 5.5 yards a rush, over 8 yards per pass, over 6.5 yards per play. Kansas State gave up over 6 yards per play. So over 53, that seems like a slightly low number. And if that Kansas State offense does work, the offensive line works, as Dave was talking about, they have 10 returning starters on offense. 53 might be a little bit low on the total.
All right, 53 in that total. Definitely not LSU, UCLA. That would have been Kansas State taking on our good friends at Stanford in Arlington, neutral site game. We're going to take on Oregon State versus Purdue. Again, Pac-12, Big Ten here. Purdue opens up 6-point favorite. The total 63.5. And Dave, kind of both of these teams have been searching for some sustained success over the last couple of years. Who do you trust more in this one?
I don't know if it's a matter of trust, but there are some things I like on the Oregon State side. One is the coach, Jonathan Smith. I think he's a guy who's gotten the max out of his talent. It's not easy to recruit the Corvallis. They're the little brother in their state. Oregon gets the studs. Oregon State gets the leftovers. But he's managed to make the team respectable. The key is Sam Neuer, who's won the starting quarterback job. Some of that was because of an injury, but he is the starter. And we saw him at Colorado. He did have to play through shoulder problems last year, so he's 100% healthy now. I don't know that Neuer's a star, but he's a serviceable quarterback. He's better than Gebbia, who's out for at least the first couple of games, and I didn't think he was going to win the job anyway. I thought Neuer would win this job. That's why he transferred to Oregon State. He didn't transfer there to be a backup. There are some holes on the Oregon State squad. The defense is strictly average. I don't know that their receivers are particularly good. I guess what I'm saying is I don't really like the team that much, but I think Smith is going to find a way for them to compete. And that might be enough to get him past Purdue. The Boilermakers, they've got a talented quarterback. There's no question about that. Plummer's a good player. But there are some weaknesses in this club. I think most of them on the defensive side. There's nothing to me that's outstanding. I think Oregon State's got a pretty good chance here. To me, it's close to a toss-up game. I think Purdue deserves to be favored, but the line's a little higher than I think it should be. So, again, not on my card because I'm limiting my card this week, but it's a lean that I think is if you liked Oregon State and I'm talking you into it, that should be okay. And if you like Purdue and I'm talking you out of it, that might be okay as well. I would lean Oregon State plus the points.
So they had Purdue had the #1 passing offense in the Big Ten last year there, Steve, but Rondell Moore is now an Arizona Cardinal. But they do have a kid that's stepping right up, and I believe his name is David Bell Jr., so they might not necessarily skip a beat here. Having said that, both defenses, who do you like a little bit more than the other here?
Yeah, I mean, Purdue returns 18 starters, 9 on each side of the ball, so it should be pretty much the same team we saw last year. Jeff Brom, in his 5th year as head coach, he, of course, was a college quarterback, so not a surprise that they have a good passing attack there. Purdue did not finish the season well last year, to say the least. They lost 4 straight. In fact, the only game they covered was their opener against Iowa, where they went 0-5 against the number 1-4 those last 5 games of the season. But they do have a veteran team. Oregon State, also a veteran team. They finished the season on 3 straight losses. So very similar type of teams. I do think the value is with the underdog here, especially at +7 or more. My power ratings make the line 5.5 in this game. Obviously, 6 and 7 are key numbers. So I think this one's a couple points too high, covering a couple key numbers for you. And you look at Oregon State here. This is a team that ran the ball pretty well last year, 5.5 yards a carry. That's something I like to see out of an underdog, especially considering, as you said, Joe, Purdue is such a pass-heavy team. They threw for 310 yards a game. They only ran for 80. Oregon State has a substantial rushing edge, almost like 2.5 yards per carry edge as a 7-point touchdown underdog. That's something we don't see a lot, and it's an angle, obviously, in the 90s it works a little better than it does now because everyone's so pass-heavy. But once again, I think Oregon State sets up as a live dog in this game, especially at 7 or more.
Yep, that's it. Heading towards Purdue, I believe West Lafayette, where that game's going to be played here, guys. So plenty of college football on the way, and again, plenty of opportunities for you guys to make it, well, a profitable weekend in college football. Games tonight, games tomorrow, and if you head over to WagerTalk.com right now, you can hop on board. Not only college football, NFL as well. Packages are available. Both of these gentlemen here, Steve Merril and Dave Cokin over at WagerTalk.com. It's going to be a whole lot of fun here this weekend and the weekends beyond. So, Steve, I'll come back to you here. Of the 4 games that we discussed, is there one that you liked a little bit more than the other?
The first one we touched on, Iowa. I did that video earlier in the week. I definitely lean that way. I make the line over 6.5. They're currently a 4-point favorite. I liked them a little more earlier this week when it was -3, but 4, I still think there's value with Iowa. Just look at a reason to play against teams that were really overachievers last year or underachievers, and I think Indiana qualifies as that overachiever. And once again, they really struggled to run the ball last year. So I can take a nice, strong home favorite here, laying a short number with a solid rushing attack. I think Iowa's worth a look on Saturday.
All right, good stuff. How about it, Dave? One you're leaning towards more than the other?
Yeah, probably LSU. I think the talent disparity overall is reasonably substantial. I don't give UCLA that much of a home field advantage because the Rose Bowl is one of the least intimidating home fields you'll find in the country. I think LSU just beats them on talent. Didn't make my card, but it came close. And I would have a strong lean, we'll call it that way, to LSU.
All right, good stuff. Going to be a lot of fun, lot to learn this weekend, guys, which is why we encourage you to go ahead, hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner, and then make sure you come back and join us again next week, all next week, as we begin the march to bowl season. I can't believe it is here. So make sure you head over to WagerTalk.com, hit that like button, hit that bell, and whatever you do here, guys, let's make it a very profitable start to the college football season. On behalf of Steve Merril and Dave Cokin, I'm Joe Raineri. Guys, best of luck with your plays. We'll talk to you again next week.
We've rolled back our football prices. WagerTalk's first full year was 2015, and we've lowered our football season packages to match what we charged that football season. Why? It's simple. We want to make our season-long packages an extraordinary value. You can buy a full college football season or full NFL season for only $5.99 each. But if you buy a college football NFL combo from the same handicapper, you pay only $8.99. Looking to mix and match handicappers? We have you covered. Just email support@wagertalk.com for a bundle discount and to create any handicapper combo you can dream of. Would you like to bet $20 and win $100 at BetMGM regardless of your wager's outcome and get $100 in free wager bucks? Just go to wt.buzz/